The music in my life began with a soft hum in the black dirt of a Texas cotton field. It crescendoed under the influence of the gentle, mournful style of the Choctaw Indians and the happy gospel hymns of a church in the Oklahoma hills. Then it was tailored by a university's erudite guidance, tested by Nashville, Tennessee's music elite, joined by my own brood of children, and carried halfway across a continent. I have learned more than I ever thought possible.
Annie Moses was my mother's mother. She lived in North Texas. She was quite impoverished, but she had a love of music. She had a naturally beautiful singing voice, but she only had 8 piano lessons in her life. And she loved her little girl. And her little girl was my mother, very, very talented little girl. She had such a passion for music and always had what she called a sob right here, and she would beat her chest. I have a sob right here that I haven't been able to fulfill my musical dreams. And so even though she married a missionary, she was determined that her children were going to study music. And so we studied piano and had opportunities to sing. So I went on to music school. I met my husband there. He was studying piano and I was studying voice. And when I was in the music survey class, my freshman year, only 18 years old, the concertmaster of the Oklahoma City Symphony brought in a little troupe of Suzuki violinists. There was this little bitty Asian girl, just so petite and so cute, and she had a toy violin. It was just tiny, the little smallest size you could have, and she played Go Tell Aunt Rhody. So I watched that little girl play Go Tell Aunt Rhody, and I was just fascinated by it. And I heard very distinctly inside my heart this voice say, when you have a little girl, she should do that. Several years ago, my family began a band together, and the work that I did leading up to that moment was pretty strategic, and I learned a whole lot in the process of how to groom a fluent musician. When we began to think about what we would call the band, that generated a pretty rousing conversation. Our whole family has within it songwriters, arrangers, strings, keys, voices. And I traced that legacy back to Annie Moses and said, why don't we call our group the Annie Moses Band?
Many parents witness the fruit of God's work in the music of our family and approach me with questions about how to achieve greater success with their children. I hear questions like, my son loved playing the piano until he went to high school. Now he wants to quit. Should I let him? How did you choose instruments for your children? Did you choose for them? Did you force your children to study music? Or how did you find a good teacher? I do my best to answer, but as I look at God's work through the generations of our family, I realize that there's much more to our success than a single-minded human interest in music. It starts with something far richer and much deeper.
The Annie Moses Band, as we have performed around the country, has inspired a lot of families. Sometimes we go back a second time to a venue to play, and we'll have parents bring their little children forward and they'll say, my child has been studying violin since we saw you a year ago. And if there's anything that I love about what our family does, it is that it inspires parents as to the potential within their child.
The Song of Annie Moses is my story of being a wife, a mother, and most of all, a woman who was given a gift by her own mother and her mother's mother. It is the story of how I was led by God to honor that gift by passing it on to others through the testimony of our family story and the life-changing power of music.